What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we dive into a video kind of discussing that if you're maybe someone who just got into MTG Arena or MTG as a whole and haven't really went out and bought physical product just yet, and you're kind of wondering where should you start being a person who plays Magic the Gathering. And like I said, maybe you played MTG Arena during the pandemic, but now that we're kind of going back to slightly normal in a way, you're looking to possibly even get into the physical card game as a whole and just don't really know how to begin to really go about doing so. So in today's video, we kind of going over a few things that I think you should probably look for to try to do when it comes to, you know, going out and buying some physical MTG product. With that being said, guys, if you like the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps me out, lets me know you guys like these style of videos. If you're new here, when I post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. With that being said, let's dive into the video and let's talk about it. So first and foremost, the one thing I would suggest that you probably do when it comes to crafting or going out and wanting to buy physical MTG product is you're probably going to want to look for, you know, what kind of deck you want to go out and build. Now, I know there are starter decks and there's things like that you can go and purchase that has something that's already pre-constructed that you can play together. But if you're looking to be competitive when it comes to playing Magic the Gathering physically, you're going to want to find a deck list that kind of suits your needs. If you're a player who has played MTG Arena, maybe you've had come up with a couple different deck lists. You can always go about, you know, importing one of your deck lists from the Arena client. There is an export button down at the bottom in the deck selection screen. You can go to the one of the many websites that you can upload your deck to, and you can actually implement it onto a website. So here we have my, you know, Witherbloom deck that I actually did for my free-to-play account. It's my budget Witherbloom deck, and if we want to go about crafting it, it is a little bit hard to see, but if you look at the top of the page, it actually does give me an estimated TCG player cost. So if I wanted to go out and physically buy this deck, it's right now estimated that this is going to cost me about $108. So that's actually not too bad when it comes to, you know, crafting maybe your first deck when it comes to playing MTG. The one thing I will say that is a little different than, you know, your MTG Arena is, unfortunately, we don't have wild cards in real life, so you can't just exchange some wild cards and get the cards you're missing. The other thing, too, I actually prefer to craft, you know, go out and buy singles and craft a deck to put it together that way than going out and, you know, taking your chance at buying packs. In the sense that, you know, just like in the game, physical Magic, just as well, it is kind of like a loot box, and you don't really know what you're going to get from your particular pack, so it may take you a while to really put together a deck that makes any sense when it comes to buying, you know, sealed product like that. But, you know, if you want to, I would suggest if you're going to actually go about buying any physical MTG product that's pre-constructed, thing I was talking about is these challenger decks. Now, they made a set of 4 of them for 2021. That's the one thing I would specifically say to look out for, is to look for the 2021 challenger decks. And you can, depending on where you go to look for, I have an Amazon listing just because I was trying to look on various other, like, you know, websites that sell Magic the Gathering product, and a lot of them are actually more expensive when it comes to these style of decks, but these are just pre-built challenger decks, and these are a little bit more advanced than your typical starter decks in what they contain. Now, these decks are a little bit put more together. They do have more rares and things like that, though I will say I think all of them just only still include one mythic, which is still kind of a weird thing, but they do have a little bit more of a competitive style of Magic. So if you're looking for something that's, you know, a little bit more of a step up from your basic starter deck to, like, closer to something maybe a little bit more constructed and competitive, this may be your best bet. And like I said, you can look on Amazon. I think you can find all 4 of them, and they're roughly about, you know, $20 a pop. If your local game store has this, I would recommend probably supporting your local game store before you probably buy any product off of Amazon when it comes to buying any Magic the Gathering product. You may pay a little bit extra, but at least, you know, you're helping support the possible game store you may be going to play at. But this is another decent way to kind of get your feet wet when it comes to actually having a pre-constructed Magic deck. Though, like I said, I still prefer actually crafting a deck and, you know, buying the singles to then build a deck. But if you're on a budget and you're not trying to spend a ton of money immediately, $20 isn't too bad to build a deck that can at least somewhat compete in some form or manner. Now, the next thing that I would recommend to buy for your Magic deck is sleeves. The one thing compared to digital Magic, you don't have to worry about, you know, nicking corners, dinging, you know, the cards in any sort of way. Just because the cards are digital, none of that stuff actually really matters. But when you shuffle them over a course of time, you're going to start rounding the edges. You're going to start, you know, creating marks on the physical cards. Even with sleeves, it does happen over time just because, you know, eventually they become like played cards in that way, and they do have some of that wear and tear. But finding a good pack of sleeves is definitely a good thing. And here I have, you know, these Dragon Shield sleeves. You get a pack of 100, depending if you're if you're buying online or possibly buying in store, Dragon Shield sleeves are something I personally played with when I was playing Physical Magic. I even have some here, like in front of me. These are just some orange Dragon Shield sleeves that I've had. They're on a deck that I built like forever ago. But these are sleeves that are nice and smooth. If you're into someone who's into smooth sleeves, instead of something with like some sort of like coarseness to it, I prefer smooth sleeves just because to me I find it easier to shuffle them, kind of hold them. The cards kind of as much as sometimes they kind of floaty, they're kind of floating because sometimes there's like air packet, especially in when you sleeve a new deck. I do enjoy that the deck doesn't feel very like stuck together. It feels kind of loose, which is definitely very good in my personal opinion. But yet again, it's a personal opinion. I also have, I think these are Ultra Pros. I'm not 100% sure, but these are also gray ones that there is a coarseness to them. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is like the coarseness. These are also pretty good sleeves as well. The one thing I would say, you don't want to chimp out on sleeves, and you don't want to buy those penny sleeves that you see sometimes people put on cards when it's maybe foil or something that are very, very like flimsy. Those sleeves aren't going to do anything. They're not going to protect your cards. At the same time too, you don't want to buy sleeves like this that you've spent a couple bucks on, and after a couple shuffles you've split like the sides and whatnot. You want to find a good, decent quality sleeve that it's going to have some wear and tear. And the one thing I would recommend, it's one of those things as you kind of dabble more into Physical Magic product, it's something that you'll kind of see what you prefer when it comes to buying sleeves or buying certain products. You find kind of things that you enjoy, and that's another thing I would recommend is just getting a decent pair of sleeves to just start yourself off, just so you protect your cards. Like I said, one benefit of playing Physical Magic is if you keep your cards in decent condition but decide that you don't want any of these cards anymore, later down the road you can always go ahead and you can always maybe trade them in or trade to another person physically, to get cards maybe you're looking to build another deck with, or even to get some money back for the cards you may have invested into, which is definitely very good, which I do sometimes enjoy about Physical Magic, is that interaction of exchanging cards in some form or way. Now, the last thing I would recommend is for any person who's just getting into Magic the Gathering, just get a decent deck box to start yourself off. You can find some pretty cheap Ultra Pro boxes for the most part. Normally these deck boxes are no more than like $2 or $3. Sure, there's some out there that are a little bit more complex, a little bit more advanced, very firm, very, very like sturdy. You can find some are metal, some that are very thick plastic. These are very soft and flimsy plastic, but if you're new to the game, you don't really need anything super duper expensive, and until you really, feel like you're invested and you really want to protect your cards in that extreme. I would recommend just buying a cheap deck box. You can get any of them. Ultra Pro usually has some that are stylized in the way of Magic the Gathering. Like these Nico Eris deck boxes. The one benefit of like these kind of style too is it's always nice to have like a nice little divider in your deck box. And now I have a deck box here that I kind of got in a while ago. It has like a zombie on it. It says Brains. And this thing is, I've had it for years. I mean, it's seen its wear and tear as it kind of has a crack here. But it's going to do the job, and it's going to keep my cards protected. And this is actually the one cool thing I do enjoy when a deck box has this. This is a divider. You might not think of anything of it, but if you're playing competitive Magic in physical form, you always want a divider to divide your main deck from your sideboard, so you don't have that problem of you put your cards into all together, and then all of a sudden you have a 75 card pile. Now you have to kind of separate your main deck from your sideboard. It's definitely a good way to kind of keep those things organized, because in digital, Physical Magic, you actually physically have to organize that stuff, which is definitely very good. And like I said, until you really, maybe want to invest even further, just getting a cheap deck box just to kind of protect your cards initially is always very good. And then later down the road, you can always get something a little bit more advanced or something a little bit more complex. Now, this last item, as you can kind of see behind me, is a binder, and these things actually do come in handy if you're someone who wants to, if you end up starting to buy some singles and buy some packs and stuff, you want to have a spot to put your cards in that you're not using into a way that you can kind of always put on display. You always have access to them, and a lot of times, you'll see a lot of players put a lot of their rares and whatnot. I have my binder here. It's a red binder, Ultra Pro. It's exactly the same kind of binder. I think this one's a little bit older. As you can kind of see, my strap to kind of keep my binder closed, this is a little worn out because this is something that happens to these rubber band type things over time. But it does its job. It has pretty solid pages on the inside. You're getting a quick little glimpse into some of my collection. I don't really even know what I have in here, but here is my binder. It has pre-built-in sleeves. You don't have to worry about buying a binder and then putting the sleeves in. the cards going on the side instead of the top and bottom, which is definitely very good because gravity usually typically makes cards fall out when it goes up when there's openings at the top, which is definitely always a benefit. And like I said, it's not always an immediate thing, especially when it comes to playing Magic and maybe you don't own a lot of product. But eventually, over time, you're going to want somewhere to put your nicer cards or maybe some fancy cards that you want to hold on to. Maybe to, possibly trade with other people. And having a nice binder that you can, put your cards in is always very good. I don't think they're super expensive. I do think, you probably have to spend maybe like $10, $15 for like a decent one to start off. And then over time, if you really want, you can even go the route of actually going out to buy like a binder from like a Staples or something and buy like those individual sleeves that you put in the rings and do it that way. Though I do enjoy these like nicer Ultra Pro like binders or one of the other brand binders that that may be very similar, do the same thing. But it's one of those things over time that you don't really need immediately. But this is definitely something that's nice to have to eventually, invest in, especially if you're looking to then build up a bigger collection than just your actual deck you're playing with. Now, with that being said, I mean, this is just kind of like my idea of what I would recommend for a newer player or someone who's just getting back into physical Magic, maybe to possibly purchase when it comes to, getting themselves started. Like I said, just to kind of reiterate, just kind of if you kind of skipped ahead to the end for some strange reason, I would recommend, pre-constructing a deck that you maybe want to go about crafting eventually, especially, look for something maybe more on the budget side. I would also recommend maybe, looking for stuff that's a little bit newer if you're trying to get into physical Magic right now, as we have rotation coming up in, the next few months. You don't really want to invest into any Magic product that may lose value come September once it rotates out of standard. The next thing I would recommend is, card sleeves. Protect your cards, protect your rares. Nothing's worse than, having a card rip, having a card get dinged or whatever, or bent because it's not protected with a card sleeve. And the third thing is you're going to want to put those cards in a box. Buy a deck box. You can get them for relatively cheap. You don't want to be walking around with a Rubber Bandit Magic deck that doesn't look very great. Plus, it doesn't help protect your cards even further. And lastly, if you want and you're trying to build up your actual collection outside of your actual deck, I'd recommend, getting a deck binder or of some sort to put your cards in that you want to show off, possibly even use for trade, or even, just to kind of hold the cards that you're looking to probably use in the future in some sort of secured place. And this is definitely one of those ways. And lastly, guys, if you like the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, want to post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. With that being said, I'll see you in the next Magic the Gathering video.